The Warriors never get to play out their Steph hypothetical. The Wolves are in the conference finals again, but can they win it this time? The Lakers, trying to build around Luka, have a serious LeBron problem. The Knicks had a Cornet problem last night, and can you ever have enough lead guards on your team? That's all today on Locked On NBA.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On NBA. Thanks for making us your first listen of the day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Doug Branson, host of Locked On Hornets, and your Shot Clock Sherpa, guiding you through the NBA's biggest stories with the help of Locked On's local experts. And I have two of the best with me, as always, from the Locked On Nuggets podcast and senior writer for the Action Network. It's Matt Moore. Matt?
Doug, just really glad that you were able to sober up enough from crying in that Chicago bar to come back and see us, buddy. Glad to see you again.
And from the Locked On Bulls podcast, we've got Hayes. Hayes?
It's been a fun week of basketball as always. The draft combine's going on. Who's rising, who's falling? We'll talk about it.
We did a lot of talking about it on Locked On Hornets today. They have the fourth pick. Not exactly what they wanted, but a lot of wing options. You can check out Locked On Hornets if you want to hear more about that. There's my shameless plug for the episode. Let's move to the playoffs, where the Wolves handle their business and keep Steph Curry on the bench, shaking his head until next season. Here's Locked On Warriors host Matt Kolsky with the postmortem.
Warriors needed not only a big performance from Jonathan Kuminga, not only Jimmy Butler to be playoff Jimmy, but then on top of that, some other guys to show up. And they just couldn't get everything going the same night. I mean, Jimmy had the one big game, and then you could see these last two. I mean, they said he was sick. Who knows if that's true or not? He certainly was not the playoff Jimmy they needed to get a win. We can talk about Buddy or Pods having a couple bad games, or Moody not showing up till it was too late, whatever. We can talk about all these things. At the end of the day, Steph went out and Jimmy Butler did not perform at the level they needed. And they were never going to win this series without those things happening.
So we're saying goodbye to the Warriors the same way we have for all of those that we've lost in the playoffs by asking, will they be back? Matt, will they be back?
Yeah, they'll make the playoffs. They'll absolutely make the playoffs. And then they'll lose. I mean, not immediately, maybe. They might make it to So a good comp here, I actually think, is the 97 Rockets. I'm going to take you back in the day. 97 Rockets. That's Hakeem with Drexler and Barkley, right? So Hakeem and Clyde win the title in 95. And then Barkley comes over and it's like, look at this big three. Oh my God. And then they were just too old. Now, in 97, they lost in the Western Conference Finals to the Jazz 4-2. That'd be a good outcome, I think, for this Warriors team. But look, I've been yelling about it. I've been screaming about it. I've been crying about it. And I'm going to say it one more time. You cannot count on Jimmy Butler game to game to be playoff Jimmy unless he's facing the Milwaukee Bucks. Unless the Bucks get shipped to the Western Conference, this is what you're going to get. A marvelous game. Oh, my gosh, Jimmy Butler, playoff Jimmy. And then a whole lot of ghosting. That's what you're going to get from Jimmy Butler. So Steph comes back. They improve the roster a little bit. Sure, they can make a run. But this group is old, Hayes, and I don't have a lot of confidence of them making it through an 82-game season and all the way to the finals. The peak is a Western Conference Finals loss in 6 games.
Yeah, they'll be back in the playoffs. Like you said, their top 3 players are what going to be next year, 37, 36, and 35, I think is what those guys are going to be like. I do think they're going to make some changes. They're going to try to come out and I think add some depth to that bench or whatever they can this offseason. They'll be back in the playoffs. I don't know how far they'll go. The brackets fell really right for them, but you never know how injuries or anything is going to shape up. We're now moving into second year where injuries have completely played a huge part into how the brackets is shaped up. So we'll see. But the Warriors are going to have a solid team. They're going to be a really good, fun regular season team to watch. They're just going to have more. They got out-coached, outperformed, and Julius Randle played some of his best basketball, and now they're out. So we'll see what happens.
Well, if they want to reload that bench, Jonathan Kuminga might be a very important part of that, either as someone coming off that bench or as a possible trade piece. Hayes, did Jonathan Kuminga do enough this postseason for the Golden State Warriors to get back real value for him?
I think so. It's going to be some value there. It's not going to be where they don't get anything and they just get scraps back for him. He's a 22-year-old player that averaged almost 16 points on like 9 shots, I think it was, or something before. Like there's a talented player there in Kuminga. It's really unfortunate that Steve Kerr didn't find a way to kind of cultivate that talent and grow it, because you need a young guy. Like having Kuminga coming off your bench could be great for that team, but I think that relationship soured. I did see like right before we started that, came out that the Warriors aren't necessarily counting out a reunion there. They should be. I think that relationship is done. But they'll get something back for Kuminga for sure. And hopefully it is some bench depth.
He's RFA. Like here's the big key is like they might be able to squeeze the market for him and get him back on a really cheap deal. And if they do that, then they can, 1, keep him, or 2, trade him on a much more affordable contract. And if somebody comes forward and is like, we want him, we'll put in a qualifying offer. You can work out a sign and trade. I don't know who's chomping at the bit. Look, I'm just saying, I get it. People have arguments with Steve Kerr about the Olympics, where he won a gold medal, or about how he's coached the Warriors, where he's won 4 championships. But you can argue about all that. And here's the thing. When he's won that much, maybe you should just understand that Steve Kerr probably knows what he's talking about. And Jonathan Kuminga can't play next to Steph Curry. That's their big problem, is they don't know how to get those two guys to coexist together. If you can't play next to Steph Curry, is that guy you really want to pay money to? I don't know how this ends, but I don't think it's going to end great for Jonathan Kuminga.
Let's move to the Wolves, who are celebrating back-to-back trips to the Western Conference Finals, a first for the franchise. But Locked On Wolves says while the offense has looked impressive in the postseason, there is still one issue that needs to be addressed.
The biggest problem was the sloppy turnovers in the backcourt. It happened off of rebounds. It happened there. I think they had, Jaden McDaniels had 2 turnovers after getting defensive rebounds, like in the backcourt, like basically, 90 feet from the Wolves basket. They had multiple turnovers like that. They had, in transition, Naz Reid, Dante DiVincenzo, guys just being sloppy with the basketball in the open floor. But the half court, when Minnesota actually got their offense set up, the turnovers weren't nearly as bad in the half court. They weren't nearly as frequent. In spite of the turnovers, they got a lot of clean 3-point looks because of the Warriors double teams. And so I also think, I don't want to say it's the Wolves' credit, but I think it's important that we remember the context of just how aggressive this defense is.
The Minnesota Timberwolves ranked 18th in turnover percentage this season, according to Cleaning the Glass. The Thunder, Celtics, Pacers, and Knicks were 1, 2, 3, and 6th in turnover percentage. Denver, the closest of the remaining playoff teams, at 13th. Great to be back in the conference finals, but can they be a real championship contender coughing up the ball at this rate, Matt?
Yes. So here's the key. I'm actually of this opinion, and I think I need to do some more work on it. The idea is that turnover percentage is one of the 4 factors, right? That statistically, it's one of the 4 most important analytical details in the game, alongside how you shoot, pretty important to put the ball in the bucket, offensive rebounding, and foul rate. The other one's turnovers, can't turn the ball over. Here's the key, though. The problem with turnovers is less about losing the possession. It's more about what happens after, is that you're creating a high percentage opportunity for the opponent. In the regular season, the Wolves, despite this high turnover percentage, were only 19th in opponent points off of turnovers, pace adjusted. In the playoffs, they're 5th. The only teams better than them are OKC and Indiana remaining. Those are the only 2 teams remaining that are better at points allowed off of turnovers per 100 possessions. This is the big thing. It's okay if you turn the ball over as long as the opponent doesn't do anything with it, because then it's like it never happened. You get a 0, they get a 0, let's reset. That's the key here, Hayes, is it's about live ball turnovers and it's about getting back in transition to make plays. If you can do that to limit the points off of turnovers, I think Minnesota's fine.
Yeah, I think Minnesota's going to be good here. The way that they've adjusted, like it's not like they have a singular game plan that they come in and just play one way. I think they're going to be ultimately fine because of the way that the coaching works out for them. I think Anthony Edwards is going to be on point this season, and Julius Randle, the way that he's been playing, I know I've said it several times, even while Doug was out, like he's been playing the best basketball that I think I've ever seen him play. And Rudy Gobert isn't playing soft anymore. I think they'll be fine overall. I'm
really curious about the team-building takeaways of 2 mid-sized markets like Indiana and Minnesota making back-to-back conference finals, so I want both of you to think on that tomorrow. But coming up, speaking of team-building, the Los Angeles Lakers, they've got a lot of team-building to do if they want to build a team that is specifically tailored for Luka Doncic. There's only one problem: LeBron James and his massive potential contract. We're going to talk about that more on the other side of Locked On NBA. Today's episode of Locked On NBA is brought to you by Wayfair. Spring is here, and that means it's home project season. Whether you're refreshing a room or tackling a full renovation, Wayfair is the best kept secret for all things home improvement. From small updates like stylish cabinet hardware to major upgrades like new vanities, sinks, or outdoor lighting, Wayfair has quality products for every budget. I just upgraded my kitchen with Wayfair, and the selection, it was incredible. Their free and fast shipping made it super easy for me. No hauling heavy items from the store. I don't do that. I don't haul heavy items. I love that they have top brands like GE and Moen at great prices so that I didn't have to sacrifice quality for all of that convenience. Shopping was seamless, and I found exactly what I needed to fit my space and my style. Wayfair makes home improvement easy. Get started now at wayfair.com. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. More Locked On NBA ahead. Thanks for making Locked On NBA your first listen every day. I listened to an interesting episode of Locked On Lakers this morning as they took stock of the team's assets in preparation for rebuilding the team around Luka Doncic. Not a lot of picks, but they do have some interesting role players that they could use to form a better version of that team around Luka. Here's the Kamenetsky brothers with more.
I think Austin definitely has value. I think Dalton Knecht has value. I think Rui has value. I don't think Gabe Vincent has a ton of value other than for a team that just needs some stability. Like, I mean, honestly, we were talking about Dallas before. Dallas is actually a team that could maybe use Gabe Vincent. I sincerely do not believe LeBron is obligated to give the Lakers a pretty steep discount. But the reason why it would be important if he were willing is because if you can get that full mid-level exception, you can break that up into a couple players. LeBron's going to decide to do what he wants to do. And if he feels like I don't trust the front office to make it worth my while, or I don't think the free agent crop out there is good enough to make it worth my while.
I'm leaving 20. Are you saying I'm leaving $20 million so we can go get Luke Cornett? Is not going to sell him.
Couple of things here. First of all, the audacity of proposing another trade with the Dallas Mavericks. How dare you, Kamenetsky brothers? But the LeBron conversation, a little bit more interesting here. If you were in LeBron's position, Hayes, would you trust the Lakers to make the moves necessary to get you one more ring, enough to leave $20 million on the table?
I mean, me personally, no, I'm not leaving $20 million off on the
right,
table.
No,
for
if
my
you're
mother.
LeBron James, you've made a lot of money.
I know. I'm just being silly. I mean, if I really believed in the vision, look, you went out and got Luka. I didn't expect that. They've basically tried to do everything that they can that you've wanted to build a team. Yeah, you got one title out of it so far. LeBron is going to recoup the money regardless. So if I was LeBron and you could put me in a situation where I felt confident we were going to get a title, yes, I'd be willing to leave $20 million on the table. The problem is I don't think the Lakers realistically can do that to make themselves a clear title contender this offseason. I don't personally see it. I do think they're going to be a damn good team next year. They're going to go far in the playoffs, but I don't see anything that to me could make them a surefire contender. But maybe I'm just short-sighted on that.
I was just doing this math in my head about what $20 million is to LeBron, as he's like a billionaire. Let's say he only had $1 billion flat. Like the percentage of what that is just really depressing. It's just like, oh God, what have I done with my life? There's also a report this morning from Dan Weike at the LA Times. And what it talked about was that the possibility of the Lakers not trading Austin Reaves because of his story and how much he means to them and this, that, and the other. And you talk about audacity, Doug. This is the thing is like the Orlando Magic are going to have to take serious calls for Franz Wagner this summer if they want to improve. They're going to have to actually be like, okay, what would this actually look like if we traded Franz Wagner, like a legit awesome player, and the Lakers get to be like, no, I don't think we really want to give up Austin to improve this roster. I think we're just going to trade like Rui and Gabe, and then we'll get like, I don't know, some guy like, I don't know, Jaren Jackson Jr. Like that's what they've come to expect. Thanks, Nico Harrison, for reinforcing that narrative. In general with LeBron, they gave Clutch the finger for 2 years. Since the Russell Westbrook trade, that ownership group has given Clutch Sports the finger, then traded AD without consulting anyone. Like LeBron's comment post about like AD said what he needed in 48 hours, he was gone, resonated. Like, I do not think that LeBron is under any obligation to help them. They chose not to help him in his prime for 3 seasons. They did almost nothing to put a championship team around him. And their big move was moving on from him this year. So from LeBron's perspective, he wants to stay because the weather's nice. Fine. Family likes it there. But he doesn't owe them a dime. If he does, this will once again be him giving the Lakers the kind of grace and help the Cavs and Heat both needed that he wouldn't afford them.
Okay, so Matt, they're making a very similar point that the Kamenetsky brothers made on their episode, which is that LeBron has given a lot to the Lakers. He's under no obligation, and given a lot to the league. He's under no obligation to take less money. But how should fans in Los Angeles feel if he ultimately makes that decision? How would that affect his legacy in LA? Hey, should fans, be upset and say, hey, LeBron, we need you to take less money here or we're not going to contend?
Yeah, I'd feel like, no, we got to if we have the opportunity, you need to make this team better now. Like, LeBron, we thank you for what you did. Great. We appreciate you. But Luka's in town now. And if you want, you have to maximize on that talent. You need to try to do that as soon as possible. I get it. He's younger, all that type of stuff, but you need to put this team around Luka now. He's also extension eligible soon. So no, I think for all those reasons, you need to start putting the pieces around now.
Okay, let's go back to the playoffs where the Boston Celtics, without Jason Tatum, summoned all of their depth to stay alive in their series with the Knicks. Here's John Corrales of Locked On Celtics.
Jaylen Brown had I think a perfect game in response to Jason, being the guy with Jason out. And obviously Derek White's got the gaudy scoring numbers, but it starts with Luke Cornett in the third quarter with his defense. 5 block shots. He had 7 block shots, a career high, 7 block shots, 5 in the third quarter. He was all over the place. Down 3-1. I could absolutely see them coming back and winning this series. I've said before, I said in yesterday's podcast, they have the horses. They have more than enough. They have enough guys. People were writing the Celtics off after the Tatum injury. They're saying they're dead, that the season is over. It's not over. The Knicks up 3-1. Yeah, teams don't normally come back from 3-1, but it's not impossible. This Knicks team is not exactly a shut the door, definitely going to close things out kind of team. They're shaky. There's a reason why everyone was picking against them.
A lot of people cheering for Cornette to go for the triple-double. I was not one of them because Luke Cornett has destroyed the Charlotte Hornets over the years, so I call him Cornette, the Hornet Killer. Matt, I don't think that you're laughing because of Luke Cornett. Why are you laughing?
Just John's disdain for the Knicks is incredible. Incredible. Like, he thought this was going to be a 5-game series. I thought it was too. So, I'm on that end. But the fact that he's basically saying, look, the Knicks aren't good. Even though they were going to be up 3-1, even before Tatum's injury, they were going to be up 3-1. But he's also kind of right. Look, if you're a serious team, if you're a serious team, if you're serious people, do you let Luke Cornett punk you like that with a chance to advance to the conference finals? Is that the kind of thing that a serious team does?
No, not at all. That's the problem in all of this is the Knicks. Listen, they're going to probably still win this series. They better still win this series. But the fact that Luke Cornett went on for a career game in a closeout situation, it doesn't make any sense. You can't expect to be taken seriously into the next game and you allow that to happen. You just can't.
All right, both of the last 2 NBA champions, both facing dynastic existential crises. We'll leave the dynasty talk for later, though. Which team has a better chance of coming back from down 3-2? Is it the Boston Celtics or the Denver Nuggets, Matt?
Neither. Think of it this way. This is something I kind of realized, oh, duh. How rare are game 7s? We don't see them all the time, right? They happen, but it's pretty rare. But one team has to be up 3-2 in a game 6. How many game 6s do we see? A lot more. The records basically say that these teams win game 6, especially if you're favored. Whoever wins is usually the favorite in game 6. That's true for most games. That's why they're favored, right? It's even higher for game 6s though. Thunder, even on the road, favored. They're likely to advance. Knicks, I think this is probably a dead cat bounce a little bit from Boston. That okay, big do it for Tatum. Last game in front of the home crowd with this core. But I think that by Sunday, we're talking Thunder and we're talking Knicks.
I'd give it to Denver if I had to choose. I just think they're still not out of this completely. I don't give the Boston much chance at all because of the injuries and everything that they have. But the Denver Nuggets still do have a chance here. And if they win this game tonight, I would actually have them favored going into Game 7. As crazy as that may sound, I wanted them to avoid a Game 7, but Jokic is still Jokic, and he's always going to present mismatches. He's always going to be able to get the best out of the players around him. I think how the OKC Thunder have really guarded him and forced him to think at times, and even forced the ball out of his hands, is definitely something that's noticeable. But I always want to give Jokic a chance because he's just that good. And hot shooting nights, Russell Westbrook has been really good for them off the bench. Surprisingly, defensively, you look at the field goal percentage he's allowing on players that he's guarded. It's been really, really good. It's been crazy, honestly. So I still will give the Denver Nuggets a shot until it's over.
All right, coming up on Locked On NBA, we are heading elsewhere around the NBA, and that includes coverage of the NBA draft. The San Antonio Spurs, new reporting on what they might do with their second overall pick. That's all ahead on Locked On NBA. Thanks again for making Locked On NBA your first listen every day. The San Antonio Spurs are reportedly leaning heavily towards keeping their second overall pick and selecting Dylan Harper, another lead guard on the San Antonio Spurs. Let's listen to some analysis from the Locked On Spurs podcast.
One of those things where it's not the position necessarily that we need, but are the Spurs really in the situation where you pick for need or do you pick for the best player available? I know we have the Rookie of the Year in Stephon Castle. He has a fantastic future ahead of him. But I mean, let's be honest here. If Dylan Harper was in last year's draft, he would have been number 1 overall. Yeah, and it would have been by far. So you have comp comparisons to Dylan Harper being like his dad, Ron Harper, to Dwayne Wade, to a lot Jalen Brunson. I'm seeing as a player comparison. It's an obvious choice when it comes to talent, but it's not an obvious choice when it comes to actual need of the team at the moment.
If the Spurs draft Harper, by my count, that gives them 3 lead guards or potential lead guards in De'Aaron Fox, Castle, and then Harper. Matt, does that make sense to you?
Yeah, you don't draft for fit. That's a problem. Is like with this high of a draft pick, you just have to take the best player. Like you just have to. I think you draft Harper and then you figure out if Castle is going to be part of your future. If you believe in him, 1 Rookie of the Year, pretty good. If you think that that's the path, you go forward with that. If you think that, honestly, it's like, hey, if you think that they're going to be better than Fox, do you maybe look at that? You can build 3-guard lineups. You do have Victor Wembanyama who plays 7 positions at once on the floor. So that helps. It's not ideal, but I do think that you pretty much have to take Harper and then figure it out. Like you have a healthy open competition for that second guard spot, and then you just figure it out. That to me is kind of the way to go about this.
Yeah, I think you have to take the talent. Like I love Castle, and maybe you can find out that they can actually play together. And you're moving into a more modern NBA. I don't know, but you take Harper. You don't pass up on Harper this high up. You don't look at and try to move that off of it. You move Castle down the road, great. If not, okay too. But I think you have to draft Dylan Harper here and just let the rest figure itself out.
No, I think a lot of that analysis makes sense if they didn't have Victor Wembanyama and if pre-Wemby injury, they didn't look so close to being a backdoor playoff team. And I think both of those things should give them some sense of urgency, either to trade the pick as part of a package for a star or even just trading down into the lottery to look for some kind of different option. To me, that would make a lot more sense.
Yeah, I mean, that to me makes the most sense here. Look, you need more guys. You need more guys around Wembanyama, and you can trade maybe a Keldon Johnson or a Devin Vassell and actually be able to get back maybe some veterans that can go around them and help them, and then have a veteran core with Fox and Wembanyama's, I guess, kind of a veteran, and then some veterans in the middle, right? And then a younger core behind it. And we're running into 2 timelines here, but your main timeline is the younger one. And that's okay. You get the veterans to help the young guys learn how to win, which I think they took steps forward this year in doing that. And that to me is the best kind of pathway here with what's on the board. I think that there will be teams willing to trade in this in various spots. And so I think there's an opportunity here for them to be able to make a very smart move that sets the roster a lot better, but they have to be willing to move on from that number 2.
The San Antonio Spurs need more guys, and the Atlanta Hawks, they need a president of basketball operations. Rumor has it that Masai Ujiri is emerging as a candidate for the job. Matt, is that a good fit?
It's weird. Masai's obviously a legend for his team building. It's taken on a team that's like in the middle of a construction. Again, the thing is, I don't know if Ujiri gets control there. If he does, then okay, because they need to get one voice, I think, at the end of it. It's good to have voices in the room that dissent, but you need to have one voice coming out of it with the decision-making process. And right now, there's a consensus that you just don't know who's in charge day to day. If you call the Hawks about a deal, you don't know. That's what other teams have said. I do kind of find it questionable just because of the amount that MLSE has invested in not only Masai, but basketball in Africa and all those programs that Masai has run. I don't know if the Hawks are going to be willing to support that. Bear in mind, like, Masai is one of the best paid and supported GMs in the league. And I think that even if he doesn't get necessarily everything he got with MLSE, he's going to want something comparable. And I don't know if the Hawks are in position to do that.
I think it's a good fit because Masai is somebody who does have a vision, right? Like, as far as that, like, to Matt's point, though, you're going to give him the runway that he needs to make the decisions, the tough decisions that he needs, because Masai, if he's going to come in there, you're going to have to give him full control over what that roster is so he can shape it in the vision that he wants it to be in, whether that means moving off some players that maybe you don't expect to move off from them or otherwise. You're going to have to make that tough decision. And so, getting Masai in here, who's a visionary, like, and somebody to do, I think that's worth it. But you just have to be willing that you're going to have to let go of some pieces that you're probably attached to and your city may be attached to, but it's probably better for the long run.
All right, let's flip this question around. Good fit for Masai. Like, is this Hawks job, is this a desirable opportunity for Masai to rebuild? I mean, they've got Trae Young. Don't they trade him? And a lot of other young pieces as well. What do you think, Case?
I think so. I think that, because you have the ability to move or not move Trae Young. You have that talent there. You got Dyson. You got Jalen Johnson there. You got the number 1 overall pick from last year. So you got a lot to work with. You have some first-round picks that are going outright to other teams because of other trades that you made, things like that. But I think it is an exciting. And I think it's a challenge there. But I do think it's an exciting position to have.
Took over the Raptors and traded Rudy Gay and wanted to tank, and then they got really good. And so, like, I could see them doing this exact same process. That to me seems pretty likely. I'm just really fascinated. Who knows what the Hawks are going to look like by the time August rolls around?
Yeah.
All right, just a few minutes left in the show. Let's do a little roll call. We've been doing this all postseason long, shouting out some of our favorite role players that we've been watching night to night, maybe some guys that haven't gotten as much shine. So, Hayes, kick us off. Where would you like to begin? Who would you like to begin with for our roll call?
I think it has to start with Luke Cornett, right? Like that was an amazing game. He deserves to be shot out with it, even though the game shouldn't have been allowed to happen. Let's be clear there. Come on, Knicks. You got to do a little bit better than that. But I think also calling him a role player is not fair at all. But I do think that Julius Randle in the series that he has deserves to be called out, because this is a guy that, like, people were talking about early on, didn't fit in with the Wolves. The Wolves are going to have to move on from him. He's putting together some of the best basketball that we've seen from him. So him, even Jaden Daniels hitting big shots, and McDaniels hitting big shots. I think those are the guys that deserve to be called out.
I'm going to go back to Thunder instead and go to Cason Wallace as a guy that's coming in, making a big impact in that series. He is so good. There was an article by Tim McMahon on the Thunder and their defense, and they're talking about, who's the best defender, and they were like, it's Dort. And then they were like, who's the second best defender? And Alex Caruso was like, yeah, I'm probably second. He's like, but Cason's real close. Like, that's Alex Caruso saying that Cason Wallace is that close. Like, this guy is going to be a phenomenal player in this league. He's finally getting some opportunities in the playoffs. Thunder have a lot of guys contributing right now, but I think Cason Wallace is a guy that people need to learn the name of.
I'm going to shout out Lou Dort. Speaking of Lou Dort, Game 5, 12 points, 4 of 8 from 3. And I'm shouting him out because in Game 4, he gets benched for not making shots. And in Game 5, he comes up big for the Thunder. Game 6 tonight. Make sure you're checking out Locked On NBA Game Night. for every game every night. It's on this feed, and they will be recapping tonight's game between the Thunder and the Nuggets. If you like what you heard today, subscribe to Locked On NBA wherever you get podcasts, including on YouTube. Thanks to Matt and Hayes for their expertise, as always. Thank you for making Locked On NBA your first listen. And for your second listen, make sure you're checking out Locked On NBA Game Night. Enjoy tonight's action. Be kind to each other. We'll see you right back here tomorrow on Locked On NBA.